Having been surrounded by entrepreneurs for most of my adult life, one common trait that I see with the successful ones is that they also have had exposure to entrepreneurs early in their venture in starting up their own business. For myself, I had resident friends who would talk about their plans to start up their own practice, start up their own urgent care. Even my dad, although wasn't successful, his network marketing company that he was involved in. And such was the case for my next guest. Becoming an employed physician was not in her vocabulary. She had in her family business owners, people who she could confide in, mentor her, steer her in the right direction. And this has led to her and her sister building a very successful pediatric practice in Houston, Texas. And on the interview as well, we'll not only hear about her journey, we'll also hear about why she decided to pay it forward, and now she mentors other physicians in the field of mindfulness and why it's so important for her. My interview with Dr. Sogol Pahlavan on this episode of Bootstrap MD. Hey guys, this is Dr. Mike Wu-Ming. Welcome to another edition of Bootstrap MD. I'm super excited that I'm finally releasing this interview to the public. It's probably one of the biggest delays that we've actually had, and it's mostly my fault because I've been having some travel issues and our schedules didn't work. But so I'm so excited to finally get on the call with this physician slash mindfulness coach. Dr. Sogol Pahlavan is a mindful coach. She is trained in pediatrics. What's also exciting is she's been a practice owner for over, let's say, it started in 2008, so 13 years. And it's so awesome to have a practice owner because it seems that we're kind of a dying breed. And I wanted her to come on, not only teach us about mindfulness and how we incorporate that in our lives, but all the trials and tribulations that come with being a practice owner. So without further ado, Dr. Sogol, thank you for joining us on the call today.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure. Yay.
Yeah. And it's like, I can't believe we're actually having the call.
I was logging on and I was like, is this going to happen today? Let's see.
Well, that's why we both are fans of mindfulness. So, when we don't have control of things, one of the things that we do have control is being more mindful of what's going on in our lives. Well, I gave a really brief introduction that I don't think gives it justice. I would like you to kind of tell us about your journey and being a physician and then transitioning into being a practice owner and then finally a coach.
Yeah. So before I tell my journey, I just want to give a summary of what I'm going to talk about because there's two angles that I'm going to come from. Number one, for those physicians that are in residency or med students or finishing residency, if there's any inkling in your body, any little tap, any little sign that you want to be your own owner, you want to be the CEO of your company, you want to be able to have autonomy, it is completely possible to do that. When I started 13, 14 years ago, we didn't have any of these resources. Like we didn't have any of the podcasts, Facebook pages, there was limited social media. I don't think Facebook was even out, or we didn't use it for that social media. So get involved, create your networks, and just talk, and network and connect. And do not ignore that calling and that urge that you have. So that I want to kind of put out there. Then the second thing I want to put out there, which kind of brings in my mindfulness, is if you do choose to go that route, okay, and it's totally possible for every single one of you, doesn't matter what subspecialty you are in, then please don't forget yourself in the journey. And I'm going to take this time to explain like what that means. And that basically means, in the mindfulness set, it means carving out time for you and regrouping and setting boundaries and doing things that gives your body rest and your mind rest and gives you a peace of mind instead of just going, which is kind of like what I did because I didn't know any better. So I am from originally, I was born from Iran, in Iran. Which so that makes me an immigrant. And I came here at the age of 10. So I had all those challenges of being just in a new country with a new language. I didn't know that I knew like, hi, how are you? But that's pretty much it, like English. I had taken a couple of English classes. And my parents were first generation and I was first generation immigrant. So lots of challenges during the middle school, high school years. And we came to Houston and I've literally stayed in Houston. I went to college at A&M, which is an hour away, came back to Baylor, graduated Baylor, stayed at Texas Children's because they had a great, I'm a pediatrician, they had a great pediatric program. And I actually was going to do the PICU fellowship and got admitted to the UCLA program. And then I had a kid and I decided I cannot move to LA with a kid without any family with like limited money. And so I had my child after I graduated. I had my child. I stayed home with her for 3-4 months. And then I was like, maybe I should get a job after all these schooling. And so I reached out to someone that I knew that I had worked as a med student or resident. I don't remember, doing a summer like internship. And she was a pediatrician. And I was like, hey, and my sister and I graduated at the same time. We're only a year apart. So we reached out and we job shared at her place and she was in private practice. So she had a small practice. We were the second and third physician. And so she taught us a lot, not just like clinically, because it's your first year out and the learning curve is a lot, but also like the administrative side. So we really got to know her nursing manager and her practice administrator, and just asked a lot of questions and was intrigued about the way that things ran. And we were going to stay on with her, but we just had differences in like visions. And so one of the reasons I went into the private practice is because the American dream for us was like you own your own company, whatever that is, like whatever field you're in, you need to be owner of that. And that was instilled to us with my parents. All my cousins are owners of whatever their field is. My dad is he owns Dairy Queen. So he's a business, everybody's a business owner. So a lot of people are like, well, how did you get like how did you get over the fear? And I was like, I don't think I thought about it. I was just like, oh, this is what everybody around me does. So, okay, I'll do it. And the place that we opened is right by my dad's Dairy Queen. It's like a 5-minute drive, and he had been in that community forever. And so he kept saying, there's so many kids that come here, come open. And we were like, we didn't know anything. We didn't know anything about business. Like, I feel like the residents right now at least know some because there's a lot more talk about it. We didn't know anything. Like, I filled out the Medicaid application myself. Like, it was that. And then my cousin he had a space. So he's like, hey, I'm going to give you this space for 6 months free. Open up, like build it out, open up. If it works, great. If not, you just lose the money on the build out or whatever. You don't have to pay any rent. And we opened, and it's been crazy since because the community needed it. And my office is a little bit different because it's underserved. It's in an underserved area. It's more of a Hispanic immigrant underserved area. And that's just I chose that area because I just connect with that population. We had a really good mix in where we started working out of residency, and I just love the Hispanic community. So I just connected with them. So it's been great. We've grown just all word of mouth. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything about HR. We just literally just made every mistake in the book, and then we learned. So that was
so it sounds like just having this family of entrepreneurs was really the big thing that really helped you overcome this, because that's, as you know, as we talked about at the top, there's not a lot of practice ownership. Maybe they're talking about business, but I still see the percentages. Most chose to work for a hospital. Nothing, there's anything wrong with it, but is it just because, were there people who actually own practices or just general businesses in your family?
No, so I think we're the only physician. So we've got dentists that own like dental practices, but they were businesses. But what I will say to that is that's why it's so important. I don't think I call that your like circle of five. I don't think the people within that circle necessarily need to be your family. I was lucky enough that I had mentors that were my family members, and it was kind of like subliminal, kind of in a sense, to where I didn't even question it. But if you don't have that, but then you have that urge, right? Like that thought just like passes, even if it's like one time a year, it passes through your mind. Start to find that circle, right? Start to connect with those people. And I mean, connection is so easy in social media now, right? We've got like for pediatrics, we have a Facebook group that's pediatric private physicians or something. It's called PPP. So if you're in what dermatology, see if there's a dermatology group out there, or connect with the local. Like there has to be one local specialist of you out there that's in private practice. Usually there's like one private, and even in Houston, because it's so like in pediatrics, it's so dominated by the two children's hospital. You can still find there's like one cardiologist, one endocrine. So connect with them, like find them, because the more, and this was such like a big a question for me. I'm like, why is it that all these residents that come out of residency just go back and work for their hospital, right? Or for like those outpatient clinics? Like, why don't they? I don't understand. And it's because their circle was this big, right? Their circle is like their hospital, and all their mentors are academic, which there's nothing wrong. Like, if you want to do academics, great, do academics. Like, it doesn't, I'm not saying don't, but I'm saying if you want to step beyond that, then go find the people that are there. Don't ask the people that are not there to give you advice about the people, that's the biggest thing. It's like, don't ask that people in academics, like, oh, should I open a private practice? They're gonna say no. Like, but I mean, they don't
Right.
know. They don't have the
No
knowledge. Like, I don't even
experience.
know what
Yeah.
private practice is. Right? Ask them like, what's great about academics, and then go to private practice and say, what's great about your job, right? The pros and cons. So that's why it's so important to like start building that circle, whether that's just locally going, reaching out to the, and private peeps, we love students, we love residents. Like, we have such a passion about like our space, where we're like, yeah, you should totally do this for yourself, right? And so we're very open to, I love it when students email me and they're like, oh, I heard you on this or this, can you help me? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to help you, yeah, sure, because I want my success to be theirs as well, and I know it's a possibility for them.
Remember when you could practice medicine on your own terms? What if you could take control of your physician career, make more money while working smarter, not harder? Pick up your copy of The Positioned Physician. Earn more, work smart, and love medicine again. Now updated for 2021, The Positioned Physician details one doctor's journey from burnt-out employee to successful entrepreneur. Whether you are in residency, in mid-career, or close to retirement, after reading The Positioned Physician, you'll gain the knowledge that can strategically impact your doctor life. The Positioned Physician, now available on Amazon Kindle and paperback.
So
So
yeah, so when I talk with medical students or new physicians, and they want to own their own practice, but there's always a but, right? And probably the biggest one is, I got these student loans. They're getting big. It's much easier for me to go to work for somebody else. What were some issues that you had to get over in terms of like finances? Did you have to get loans? Did you self fund it?
yeah, so I will say students loans are huge. So I went to all in-state college, whatever education, right? So I think I came out with like $120,000 worth of student loans, like, which is not
Which
much
is
back
nothing,
then, but
right? Yeah.
people are coming out with like 300, 400. So if you're med students, think about that, like where you want, or pre-med or something, where you want to go. And I think the finances are super important at that stage. Like, do you go out of stage and pay like four times, or do you stay in state and then pay less? So think about that. And then I got, our build out was like $60,000 at that point. So yes, we got a loan of $60,000. But again, like, we made it back. Like, it's just a
Yeah.
little, like, people, I think it's your mindset. Like, it's like, oh my like, oh, that's so much money, or like, oh no, that's actually an investment. Like $60,000 is an investment for me to create whatever that I want to do, this dream or my desire, or have these possibilities. And within 2 years, we grew out of our space. It was a shopping center with a dentist in the middle. So we got this space, and then we grew out and got this space. And then within 3 years, we bought ourselves the land and an old factory, or like a building or something. So that was another investment. Again, I wasn't like, oh my God, I have to take out, it was like $500,000. I was a lot, right? But again, I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to take out this loan, but at the end of it, I own my land, right? Don't think so. And instant gratification is so big in this generation, right? So think long term. I own my land. I own my building. I'm going to have equity in this, right? And that comes from the belief that I can do this. This is like, I know who I am. I know I'm a great clinician. If I don't know anything about business, I can learn. One of the things that I always tell residents is think of it as you prolonging your residency another 2 years, right? Like if you do internal medicine, let's say, right? And that's 3 years. And then you want to go, and then your mind is like, okay, in 3 years, I'm going to make, I'm just throwing something out there. I don't know numbers, $200,000, right? And that's my salary. Because once your mindset is set and you have a certain salary, then your lifestyle starts, right? Competing with that salary. Then I can buy a house, I can buy a car, private school, blah, 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 whatever, vacation. So just tell yourself, okay, I'm going to graduate in 3 years, but I've got 2 years where I'm going to build my practice. So my salary is going to stay at whatever, 40,000. I don't know how much residents make. My salary is going to stay at $40,000 for the next 2 years, right? Then you allow your mind to open up a little bit more to the possibility of like, oh, maybe there is another route. Right? So a lot of it is just your mindset moving forwards. Part of it is like the mentoring and connecting. And then part of it is like, what mindset are you looking from? If you've got like $500,000 worth of loans, I don't know about that. Like that you need to do a little bit of financial planning on that end. Or if you have a partner, then the partner, like if you've got money coming in from the partner, then you've got to get the partner on board and say, hey, I know, my salary would have counted in 3 years, but no, it's going to count in 5 years. So allow me those 2 years. We're still going to live in this apartment with our, I don't know, like Honda or whatever car that we have. And our kids are going to go to public school, or we're not going to have extravagant things, but it's about prioritizing. That's why I said it starts with your why and how much you want it. And if there's a want there and there's an inkling there, then don't keep numbing it out and don't keep burning it up. Like really go for it.
Right. I love that you have this really strong belief in investing in yourself, because like you said, you know what you want to do, you know what your goals are. And when in terms of money, at least now, as opposed to, back in 2008 when there was, that financial crisis, I mean, I talk with new owners and they're like, it is so easy getting an SBA loan with these rates that they're giving. They're almost basically giving money away to do this. And if you have something that you want to do, and of course, I'm a big proponent of becoming your own boss. And it's really, in my opinion, even if it's $500,000, in loans, you can always work with a financial plan. I'm not a financial planner, but there's always a way. There's always a way if you feel that you have to do it. Yeah, it might make you want to work somewhere else, as you're growing your business. I never tell people to if you've got guaranteed income, you can work 10 to 20 hours or work some locums or something like that while you're building your dream, then do it. Then do it. But as we sit here now, is you're a practice owner, and maybe you can give the listeners about what your schedule is now in terms of like your clinical time versus administrative, et cetera.
So right now we're in year 13, right? And I have dropped down to 2 clinical days a week. In the middle of COVID, I was like 2.5. I picked up some like sick shifts because of the craziness of COVID. And then I say probably, I want to say within 5 years, I went down to 4 days a week. And maybe every 5 years, I kept going down. So maybe within 10 years, I was down to 3 days a week and then twice. And now I'm sitting at like twice a day. But even when I was full time 5 days a week, and this is what's so beautiful from private practice, right? I'm outpatient. So I was able to do whatever I wanted with my schedule, right? So like I was able to come in at 9 o'clock because my kid had something at 8 o'clock, right? I had three. Okay, so another one for female mother physicians out there. I had 3 kids under the age of 6 when no, sorry. Okay. I had 2 kids under the age of 5 when we like broke ground. And then I was pregnant within 6 months of breaking ground. So I essentially had 3 kids under the age of 6 by the like first year into my practice. So it wasn't like I held off on having kids or whatever. No, I just kind of did it all together. So it is totally possible to do it. There's a right way of doing it. For me, I think I made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of those mistakes were just like not understanding what my personal needs was. Not delegating is huge for physicians. I didn't delegate anything. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do everything myself. Don't do that. Boundaries. I let a lot of people run all over me as far as staffing. Okay, I learned not to do that, but that's all growing pain. Like you learn, right? These are all, I don't look at it like, oh, I was walked over. I would look at it as like a learning opportunity. Wow, look at all the tools that I have in my belt now that I've gone through this journey. Right. So it is totally possible. I have some major money mindset issues. So that I'm working on.
We all do.
When you said like $500,000, go for it, my brain went, oh, but yeah, like, but that's just my brain. But my schedule back then, or I would like come in at 9 and work through lunch. I didn't need a lunch break. Like it was totally what I wanted. That's the autonomy. I think it's so important, especially when you have kids. Or I would block. My last patient, I think from when we even started, my last patient was at 4 o'clock. I was out of the clinic by 4:30. Like I never stayed because our clinic is far, so the traffic is a little bit, and I never wanted to stay in that traffic. But I was super efficient with my time. I know operational management. I'm very good with drawing boundaries with patient, like those kind of things. I work to my advantage to be able to see patients efficiently and like make it out the door. And then like some of the other things, like, okay, we had before COVID, we had scribes in our clinic. So if I was working for someone, I would have to go through 20 layers of administration to try to, persuade them to get a scribe, right? Literally there's 4 people in our admin team. And so I joke because most of I'm in practice with my sister, so she's a pediatrician and we're the 2 managing partners. So literally our decisions were made over text at 11 p.m. like when we were after the kids were at bed. Like it was just so easy. There was no like, let's set up this meeting and let's have blah, blah come in. And so those are some of the great advantages. During COVID, we paid everyone. We took a hit personally, but we thought that was the right thing to do. We didn't let any staff go. Some of the physicians that wanted to go down a day a week because of the kids at home, we just accommodated everyone. And so where everybody else that was working with other big financial, organizations were just, the messages were pouring on Facebook, right? Right. My institution did this, I got laid off. There's so many mid-levels that are now in primary care. There are so many mid-levels that are now replacing pediatricians and internists and like, I don't know, like dermatology, like crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So I feel like this time is even more of a time to be able to go out on your own, like more of a reason, because you've got. So I don't think medicine's the same. I think it's much harder than it was when we had trained. Like your job security, there is no job security in medicine, and COVID told us that. And there's so many changes and transitions that the system is going through as a whole. So why not just build what you want and do things your way?
Right, right. And I think not only has it changed, but to do this, obviously your skill sets has changed. Being not only just being a clinician, but being an administrator. What do you think was kind of the turning point for your clinic in terms of like, okay, this is working, this is a success?
I don't think I ever thought it wasn't. Because literally, I will say location, 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 like 20 times. And we didn't do a lot of research. A lot of it, I feel like, I don't know, someone up there, the universe, whatever you believe in, was just looking out for us. We didn't do a lot of like the research as to where hire people. My dad was like, hey, there's a lot of kids here. And we're like, okay, here's a shopping center. Let's open up. Like literally, but we opened the doors and they flooded.
Wow.
Yeah, there was no, and I don't remember when we took, like, how long did it take us to take a salary? I don't remember, but I will say from the current pediatricians that are in the Facebook group that we talk to, it's like 12 to 18 months is usually what they say. It's not like 2, 3, 4, 5 years or anything like that. It's not.
Right.
Especially, I will say, with the way that patients are getting treated in larger systems where they're very disconnected and losing that connection with the physician, or getting really frustrated with like the front office. I will say that a lot more people are looking for that relationship that's been lost in medicine. So, and if you're in solo, I mean, what we went into medicine for is just connecting and having relationships and helping people.
Right.
Right. And so it is totally possible. And I think people are yearning that, craving that relationship. And so are physicians, and I mean, so are families, and yearning that family physician relationship. Yeah. But no, there's no way that it won't work. I've never heard of a pediatrician that's opened up a practice that it hasn't worked. Like I haven't. And
Yeah.
I'm very much into like all these different places that pediatricians are, AAP, blah, 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 all that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right. Right. One area that I see where a lot of people have the biggest issues is obviously your biggest expense is usually salary, and usually comes when you're like hiring, another physician or another mid-level. What was your experience with that? You said you have 8 providers now.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure that out. Yes, we have. I will say, you know what I have? I'll say each provider is different and their needs are different, right? Just like all humans are different. So instead of having something that's very like concrete, this is what I offer. Ask them, like, what would you like? That's what's beautiful about private practice, right? It's like, I don't have to go by any particular set contract that came from up there somewhere, right? 3 levels higher. I can sit down and be like, hey, do you like telemedicine? Would you like to do half of your like visits from home telemedicine? How would you, does money, like, is that something that drives you? Or do you want more PTO? Or do you want like to be home at like 4 o'clock with your, like, what do you want?
Right.
And then work backwards from there, right? Because each individual is different, and each individual has different needs depending on where they are in their life, right? And so just ask them.
Right. I love like focusing on it when I'm working with employees. Tell me what you're good at. What are your strengths? What do you feel you want to do? Or are there things that you want to do, but maybe you don't, you need the support. Maybe you want, we can help you with the education for this, if that's something that you want to pursue. Where it goes wrong is when you're having them do something that they're not interested in doing.
I did
They
that.
don't want to do it.
That was awful. I did that for a long time. And then I was like, why do they keep leaving? I'm just trying to teach them stuff. And then I was like, oh, I don't think they want to be taught. I just think they want to be staying. Like, some employees just want to stay and do the same thing, and they're totally cool with that. And personally, I'm not cool with that. But like, I've learned that, hey, that's their choice and it's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. So that's a great point you bring up.
Right. Yeah. And our staff, at least I have a staff not as large as yours. I think we have 12 employees now, but we've had a longevity. whether they're loyal and they have, with the office manager who's got 4 daughters, but she gets to go home early because her softball practice, that's her thing in her life. And so she stayed on because she didn't been able to move her hours. So whatever that is for your employee, again, it's an art. It's not something that you read in a book. But what I found is just focusing on what they're good at, and we're all there because we want the best outcomes for our patients, right? And that's going to happen with people who want to be there and they see the same vision that you do. I just want to ask one last question. I mean, we could do another episode on this, but I wanted to focus on the mindfulness coach and why you decided to become a coach.
Okay. So I describe myself as an energizer bunny and a locomotive. I go at like 120 miles per hour without a break. And I did that for 40 years. And then my body said, like, we're not going to do it anymore. And the way that it manifested with me is I was tired, like post-call tired all the time. Didn't happen what I ate, if I exercised, if I slept, didn't sleep. I started cutting back on work hours, didn't matter. I went through the whole like workup of like fatigue, whatever, this and that. Then I thought it was like midlife. And so I struggled with it from like 40 to like, I'm 45 now. So to like for 4 years. And then I started reading a lot of books, like self-help books. And so the conclusion I came to is that I was emotionally exhausted. And the reason I was emotionally exhausted is because I had not ever stopped and paused and listened to my body and listened to like, you need to take a break. You need to take a vacation. You need to delegate. You need to not pack your schedule with so many patients, like those messages. And I just kept pushing through it. And it's like you run out of gas, right? And I think on top of that, we as physicians are such givers. And we have to take we have to listen to a lot of our patients, and with my patients are getting to be the age of like teenagers, and have a lot of more problems and social problems and mental problems. And I was taking all that on, and I was just like internalizing all of it. And it wasn't a good combination. So I was carrying my own emotional baggage and then taking it from my patients. And so I had turned into like this really angry, frustrated, trying to control everything. And that just like tired me out. And what was so surprising is like, I would never considered myself like being depressed or anxious. I didn't have a family history of it. So I didn't even look there, right? I was like, this absolutely doesn't make any sense. So then in some of the groups that I've been in, the physicians groups, they were talking about coaches. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I need a coach. Like I need something. I have no idea what it is, but I need something to make me feel better. And so I hired a coach. And so that allowed me to really understand everything that I was carrying was here. The load was more here than it was on the outside. And it's the mindset and how I looked at things. And when I started looking at things from a different lens, and first changing my mindset, and then the second component, it's like actually looking inside your body and saying like, hey, I can feel, like you're allowed to feel, like you're allowed to be angry and that's okay. Or you're allowed to be sad and that's okay. Like you don't have to keep putting up this armor and being like, oh, I'm just going to save everyone, right? Which is what I had been doing for so long as like a mother, a wife, a physician, an administrator, like an entrepreneur, like all those responsibilities. And I had just lost myself in what that was. And so I went through coaching, and it completely changed the way that I looked at everything. I always say it changed me. It didn't change. Like my kids are the same. My husband's the same. The job's the same. Like nothing on the outside changed. I was the one that changed and needed changing and I reconnected with my mind. I reconnected with my body. And then I loved it so much that I got certified as a coach. And I picked mindfulness because for the past 5 years, I've just been following the big teachers in mindful teaching and meditation and yoga and a lot of that. And so and a lot of that kind of weaves in with coaching. So it was a great fit. And I'm actually using it on like my teen patients that come into the clinic. I'm using it with the staff. I'm using it with my kids. I'm using it like towards my, like, it's like every relationship that you can think of, it's made a positive impact because of what I have learned and because of just like making that tiny shift in that mindset and like really empowering yourself and like really going through your emotions and not just hiding from them. And or for me, emotions were weak, right? I don't feel, because if I feel, I'm weak, and then I can't get stuff done when I'm weak. Like, I had a crazy brain. So that was like my thought. That was like my limiting thought, is that like we don't feel, because when we feel, like you have to pause, and then when you pause, then you're gonna fall behind. I don't know behind what, but you're going to fall behind. And so that's a lot of the work that I had to do for myself. And it's made a huge difference.
I'm a big fan of mindfulness. I try to incorporate it every day. And maybe I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. For someone who is new to this whole mindfulness, they've heard the word, they're not sure exactly what it is. Is there something that you can maybe teach them right now that they can do to maybe get an introduction of it? I
Yeah.
think that really help our listeners out.
That's an amazing question, because literally, like, I would read all these, like, it didn't click for me. I was reading for 3 years, and this is what mindfulness was. I'll give you an example. I'd cut back hours. I would drop off the kids for carpool. I would come and sit in my like couch in my room, and I'd like sit there and I'd be like, okay, I am present. And I was like, and then I was like, okay, now what? I didn't get it. I was like, I don't get it. Like, when they talk about like live in the moment, live now, I'd be like, okay, I'm living now in the moment. Like, is something supposed to happen now? But the way I explain it, mindfulness is two things for me. Mindfulness is your thoughts and your feelings. Your thoughts live in your head. 85% of what we think inside our head, that mental chatter, that noise, is completely unconscious. Unconscious. You don't know what's going on in your head because you're so much on autopilot. So understanding what those thoughts that your brain is telling you, and thoughts are not truth. Thoughts are facts. Okay, so important to understand. So if your thought in your brain keeps telling you feelings are weakness and you can't feel because then, I don't know, you fall behind on whatever, be like, oh, maybe I should like, why am I thinking that? Like, be curious, ask yourself why. And then feelings you feel in your body. So like but the first step is in understanding your thought, because when you start understanding your thought, when you start thinking about it and making that shift, then that mind chatter, that noise, that like a lot of my clients say, I'm tired of the noise, I'm tired of the clutter, I'm tired of the mess. Like, when that gets quiet, then you can drop down to your body, and oh my God, when you do, like, it literally talks to you. And then you can be like, oh, my body was palpitations. I had chronic palpitations. And I was like, if this continues, I'm going to have arrhythmia by the time I'm 50. So when you drop down, and I was like, every time now when I have palpitations, I pause and I'm like, okay, we're having palpitations. Let's regroup. What's going on? Where do we need to look? What's happening? What happened last week? Right? Instead of like just like driving through like all these speed bumps and not having anything to do. So thoughts and feelings, that's mindfulness.
That's awesome. I think that could be very, very helpful. So you shared a lot of great information. I think there's a lot of good stuff that the listeners will get a lot out of. For those who want to pursue and get to know you a little bit more, maybe learn more about your coaching practice, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So I am working on my website because I have this limiting thought that tech sucks. So it's coming out in August. It's going to be drsogol.com. So that'll be that. But I am on Instagram under Dr. Sogol _mindful living. I'm on Facebook, Mindful Living with Dr. Sogol. And I have my podcast, Mindful Living with Dr. Sogol. So if you're interested in understanding what this like mindfulness stuff is, I break it down to like, I'm a pediatrician, so I talk to like kids. So I literally break it down like I'm talking to a kid. And I explain to you what it is. And I give away all my coaching tips on my podcast. So if you listen to my podcast and it really resonates with you, and then you want to work with me further, there's a bunch of links on the podcast that you can click on or email me or DM me or like Facebook page me.
And maybe you'll get another DQ recipe as well.
Yeah. If you follow me on my Instagram, I talk a lot about DQ.
Awesome. Dr. Sogo, this was certainly enlightening. I'm so glad we finally were able to do this. It was a great episode. I enjoyed it. Any last minute thoughts before we end the interview today?
Y'all believe in yourself. Whatever dreams that you have, they can become a reality. I promise. It starts with your belief in yourself and then building your circle of 5 that has that belief aligned with your values, and then just like going for it. And going for it means just doing it and falling and doing it and failing and doing it and falling and failing and learning until you get to your goal. Literally, that's what I did. And and it doesn't stop. Like you keep failing and falling and learning. And that's life.
That's right. At the end, it's about doing something, whatever you have to do to get you there. We'll always have that voice in our head, as you mentioned, telling us no. But that's part of being human. That's part of our protection. It is difficult to get us out of our comfort zone, but you probably wouldn't be where you are if you weren't able to get that practice up, get that coaching practice up, and just keep moving forward. So thank you so much, Dr. Sogol. Thanks again. Check out her links here. We'll have that available for you. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Hey, Dr. Mike here. I hope you're inspired by that interview. And if you aspire to become a coach or consultant yourself, I highly encourage you to check out my free on-demand masterclass, How to Become a Highly Paid In-Demand Physician Consultant or Coach. On the masterclass, I'll not only share you my story of how I've become a physician consultant for over 15 years, I'll also share you real-life case studies of physicians who are actively doing this now, either adding or replacing their current income as a doctor. To register for the masterclass, we'll leave a link in the show notes. I look forward to sharing you this important information today.